I would tend to believe they probably said more than those two words. If the numbers are to be believed, President Barack Obama has never been this unpopular. The latest Wall Street Journal NBC News poll shows it's barely over a third of the people questioned who think he's doing a good job. Not that bad numbers are any shock for any president, but with the midterms coming, you can take heart in knowing plenty of strategists are looking at these numbers with hard thought of the future. Let's go ahead and break them down, talk about what it all means. Joining us now from the Washington Examiner, commentator Ashe Schow joins us today. Ashe, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Ashe, let's go ahead and dig right into it here. Well, I guess Chuck Todd's comment probably has a lot of people talking right now in Washington as well, basically saying that the presidency is over. I would imagine that's not exactly what the White House thought was a great way to wake up and spend their morning hearing that first thing out of the box.
Oh, definitely not. And now Obama wants to go assert himself again by speaking about Iraq and looking tough on Iraq. But the fact of the matter is, the reason this poll is showing him so poorly is look at what's going on right now. The VA scandal, even though the voters don't totally blame his administration for that. We've got the VA scandal, the IRS scandal, still lingering questions about Benghazi, Bergdahl. I mean, Iraq is imploding, Ukraine is imploding. I mean, you have all these issues going on that there's just seems to be no good news for the administration coming out week after week.
You have to ask yourself a question, though, here, because the administration certainly knows that they have to at least keep up appearances. They still have to lead. It's not as if he's going to leave office in a week or two. And I mentioned the midterms. There are still the Democrats. We'll get to the reaction of them in a minute and how this will affect them. But isn't it still stunning that there's certain things going on and it seems as if there is an insulatory manner about the rest of the world around the White House? We don't care what anybody else thinks. We're just going to go about our day and take care of everything here as we see fit. The country be damned. It almost seems as if that's the attitude.
Right. They're going to keep on with their policies that are unpopular, completely, and just basically insulting the American people for not agreeing with them anymore. I mean, they put it on Republicans and blame Republicans for everything, but this poll is just showing that liberalism just isn't that popular in America, and Obama and his administration refuse to believe that to their detriment.
Well, let's look at this as far as liberalism is concerned, and I said I would sort of get to the Democrats here in a minute, because Chuck Todd said that this is a disaster for the president, but not for the Democrats. Now, your reaction to that would be?
That is false. This poll is also, or another poll is showing that Obama is very vulnerable in states where Democrats really need to win this election cycle. And when you see things like that, then you see that, yes, Democrats are in trouble, because if they lose the Senate this year, then it's going to be a Republican-controlled House and a Republican-controlled Senate against an unpopular president. I mean, he will have to change his policies at that point. He will have to change his strategy. He can't just well, he probably will just sign executive orders until he leaves office.
Let's just go ahead and say that he decides to change strategy here. As you mentioned here, president's decided we need to get ourselves back on better footing here. We need the American people behind us. What, in your opinion, and you're on the ground in Washington, 2 or 3 things that he has to do right away to get the American people back on his side?
Well, he has to really bring closure to some of these scandals. He has to make vast improvements to the VA, and he needs to stop ignoring it, which he has been recently. And then he has to stop this the remarks that he has where he's just constantly insulting the Republicans, which means he's insulting people who agree with the Republicans, and he's become very rude about it, you know, and it's just rubbing people the wrong way. He looks insulary, and he needs to change his tone. Go back to the Obama of 2007, 2008, who spoke in lofty terms about bringing the country together and finding solutions everyone can agree on. Now, he's just out there saying my way or the highway, and it's not working.
What about other Democrats here, and your opinion as far as they're concerned? Because there is a thinking process that as she goes on her book tour, Hillary Clinton is trying to distance herself from the president, put a little space here, and get away from his policies. Do you get the feeling that there is a groundswell, or at least a movement in Washington among other Democrats to start perhaps to separate themselves, especially those who are coming up for election in the midterms?
Oh, definitely, especially Democrats in red states that rely on energy. I mean, this poll showed that they trust Obama better than, anyone else on climate policy and the environment. But when it comes to these coal states, you have Democrats like Senator Landrieu, Senator Pryor, all of these Democrats kind of coming out and saying that they're not really happy with Obama's coal policies and the EPA's coal policies. So you see them running away from that. You see running away from Obamacare. They're just doing everything they can to distance themselves from Obama.
All right, now I'm going to play the devil's advocate here, play the other side. There are people who are going to look at this poll and say, come on, Ed, come on, Ashe. We see these polls all the time. It's only 1,000 people. It's not as if it's actually the entire American electorate who's against the president here. You're all overreacting and knee-jerking. What would you say to those folks?
Well, I mean, you could say that about me or other Republicans, but when you lose Chuck Todd, you're kind of he's not exactly someone who's going to cheerlead for the right. He's definitely on Obama's side. So when you lose people like him and other liberals, and you see that Democrats are running from Obama's policies, this poll actually does mean something.
Do you sense, too, and maybe I get this just from reading and listening a little bit, that there are members of the media, certain members, who have always been on the left, and let's all be very honest here, folks. There are members of the media who do pick left, right, middle, whatever it is you want. It does happen. It's happened for a long time. Do you get the feeling, though, there are some members of the press corps that are now starting to even say, maybe we should distance ourselves. Maybe we should start being a little more fair and looking at both sides instead of simply just focusing on the liberal side of issues? Ashe,
Well, they kind of have to.
Okay,
they've tried to ignore a lot. Yes, they've tried to ignore a lot of these scandals. They try to go along with Obama and say that they're phony. But when the VA issue hit, no one could really ignore that. These are veterans dying, waiting for care. It was very, very difficult for the media to ignore that. And once that begins, and then the Bergdahl issue comes out, and you start looking into that, I mean, the media is kind of just, they have to report on these things. They've pretty much been forced to. I'm not sure whether they want to, but they've definitely been forced.
Is there enough here for the Republicans to take advantage of, or is this simply just a poll that will disappear here in a short time and it doesn't mean that much as far as trying to go after the president and the Democrats?
Well, they'll definitely use this poll. There's definitely enough in it to use. But if the next poll comes out in a month or two and everything has become reversed, then yes. I don't believe that's happening. I mean, Obama's approval ratings have been falling quite rapidly recently. His trust with the American people and how he's seen on issues like healthcare has been falling in the past few months. So I don't think that this is just an outlier. I do believe that this is a trend.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Dick Cheney here and his daughter Liz. They wrote a rather interesting op-ed in the Wall Street Journal that has an awful lot of people talking nationally right now, basically arguing that the president's administration has weakened America's global standing, that the president, they say, seems determined to leave office, ensuring he has taken America down a notch. What's been the reaction in Washington to this article? Because it certainly has resonated around the country.
Well, they're definitely, most in Washington are actually kind of saying, Dick Cheney, come on, really, sit down, dude. Like, you had your chance. We're kind of done with you. But when you look at what he's saying, I mean, whether or not Obama's determined that his actual goal is to take America down a peg, I'm not convinced of that. But you do see that in the Middle East, America is becoming less and less like than it was even under President Bush. You know, there's people in the Middle East that think that the U.S. abandoned them. People in Afghanistan, Iraq now, which is falling apart, feel that the U.S. abandoned them. And that is definitely Obama's doing by declaring the war's over and pulling the troops out regardless of the situation on the ground. And now we're in this. So in that respect, I think Dick Cheney has a point. But again, should he really be talking? I mean, he did help get everyone into Iraq in the first place.
About 10 seconds, I'll give you a quick answer. Is there a thinking, too, in Washington, at least from some people I've spoken to, want your opinion here, that maybe Dick Cheney speaks to an older audience and the Republicans need to start speaking to a younger audience with younger voices?
Oh, absolutely. Dick Cheney represents the old guard Republicans, and we need to, we have a real hard time attracting millennials and younger people into the party.
I think that's going to be a discussion that will be had from the midterms and beyond. Ashe Schow from the Washington Examiner, thank you very much for being with us today. We do appreciate your time. All right, Ashe, thank you very much. It is interesting to note, too, that the president's approval ratings are down to an historic low. And we're going to see what happens today because we are waiting now in the White House. We are told that sometime within the next 5-10 minutes or so, the president will take to the podium and he has an announcement regarding Iraq and the next action for America. There's the White House. We're watching, and we will bring it to you live when it happens, right here on the Newsmax TV network and on MidPoint, where we question everything.